So I'm Rhonda Francis, and this is my first tutorial. I've chosen Beautiful Fairy Tales, Cinderella by Ruth Sanderson. It's a grayscale adult coloring book. There are 36 images. The one I've chosen to color is Cinderella going down the stairs. Now this is towards the back of the book, and that's difficult to get the paper to lay down flat, so I'm actually going to remove this page. I don't normally do that, but I'm going to need to have this lay down smoothly so I don't tear any holes in it. I think my razor knife isn't all that sharp. There we go. So the purpose of this tutorial is to demonstrate how to color in books published by Createspace. So on Createspace paper, a lot of people find that they dislike the paper for various reasons, but it is a little toothy, and that is hard for some people that are used to coloring on cardstock. I find cardstock too smooth. I just can't do a decent job on it. I can't get the colors to lay down properly. I think it's great for markers and for gel pens, but I have several different brands of pencils and I cannot get good coverage. So I prefer to color on the Createspace paper to cardstock. However, my favorite paper is Canson sketch paper. I also like Canson's mixed media paper. Both of them are very nice to color on. The mixed media is a little more toothy, but it takes pastels fairly well, and it'll take a little bit of wet medium. So something to think about. So what I'm going to start with, and I normally start with, are the flesh tones. So in this case, I just see, it looks like just her face and neck and one hand. And the colors that I generally start out with for any time I'm doing fair complexion are the light peach and peach. And I like to use something in the pink tones like Clay Rose or Nectar. And these are all Prismas. That's all I use for skin tones. Rosy beige is nice. And then I usually use one of the pinks for cheek color. Normally I use a grade lavender for shadows, but I didn't bring that to the studio today. So I will improvise. I'll find something else here that will work for the shadows. So let's get started. It's nice to have a sharp pencil for this. So I'll just sharpen up this one. And what I normally do is I start in the darker areas, even though I'm using the light. You can see that this is the light peach, and it's Prismacolor 927. And I'll start in the darker shaded areas, and I'm just making small circular motions while I do this. And this just helps me to keep track of my light areas later on. if I cover up my light areas and everything in the beginning, I tend to lose track of where those were. So I will get some color on there, down on the hand. And then I'm going to go to the flesh, or I guess this is the old barrel Prismacolor. I've had this for well over 30 years. Came in a set for photo retouching, but it has been renamed. It is actually just peach now, and it's still the same number, 939, and it's still the same color. But if you hear me call it flesh, then you'll know I've grabbed the old pencil. I'm just kind of going over what I've already colored. I just darken it a little bit. And I kind of just keep doing that with different shades. So I'll go to the Nectar. I'm going to kind of darken the areas that I really want to be more shaded. Just lightly. I'm not applying very much pressure at all. This may seem like I'm just adding unnecessary steps, but it's very important to build your colors, because in nature and real life, things aren't just one solid color. There are shadows and depth to color that can only be gained by layering. Now, another color that I'm going to use here is cream. Cream is a trick that I learned off of Ruth Sanderson in one of her tutorials, and it's really helped me to build my colors and to bring out the yellow tones in skin, because, you know, skin's not just one flat shade, and I know my skin has got a lot of yellow tones to it, which you don't ever see me wear the color yellow, because it just really doesn't go well with my already yellow skin. Now I am applying a little bit more pressure because I'm trying to blend those colors together. Once you get some layered like that, you can usually just smooth them in with the pencil. And then I'll just continue to add more colors on the top of that. I just build and build. And this is a small area and it just won't take very long to do this. But if I'm doing a page that's mostly a face, you know, like a portrait, then it takes me a lot longer for that blending process. And, you know, here you see me using, you know, 6 or 7 colors, but I did one portrait that I used 14 different shades to get the skin tones just where I wanted them. I forgot to bring my brush with me, so I'm going to have to brush the old-fashioned way. This is Clay Rose, and I'm going to use that again to try to emphasize some of the deeper shadows up where the hairline is, under the ear. under the jawline. And I'm not applying much pressure at all because I don't want to put on a lot of color. Just barely touching the paper, really. And I'll go back to my light peach, put another layer of that on. And I'm pressing a little bit harder with this light peach. Just a little more pressure. That's smoothing the different layers together. It's, you know, they call it blending, but it's almost like just, on Prismas they're so soft, it's almost like just smearing them together. So I'm going to take my pink lightly, ever so lightly, because I can make her look like a clown pretty quickly if I'm not careful. It's easy to put more layers on, but it's harder to get them off, so, you know, without undoing the rest of your work and having to start over. Those are tiny lips. It's hard to do. Got some light peach down here. Take some of the yellow out of it. But you can see there's still yellow tones. And another thing, when you put your pink on and you go to blend it in, don't use the cream to blend it in. It turns it orange. Just use your peach and you can just, you know, gradually blend the edges in. And it'll look much better. So there, that's all there was to getting the flesh tones done. So we will move on. Put these pencils away so I don't have them laying everywhere. And now we'll go on to the dress. And I've been giving this some thought, and I'd like to use blue in the dress. It's night and I kind of want to do like a lot of blue tones in the background to bring out the shadows and the night colors. So I'm going to, and again, I like to use Prismas on fabric because just like on that flesh tone, the fabric needs a lot of blending, and that'll work really well with the Prismas. So trying to find just the right light shade. Powder blue, we might use that. And thinking that's Caribbean, yeah, Caribbean Sea. That's 1103. And I need one more, need 3 blues to get everything blended together right. Let me see what other blue would work well here. A little too bright. That'll do. That is Cerulean blue. Sorry, I'm not much of one for picking out my colors in advance. I get a general idea of what colors I want. Like I want blue or I want green, but I don't usually pre-select my colors. So one other thing I want to use is white on this, and I'll show you why. This is what I have found to work best when I'm doing highlights. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over the already lightest areas with the white. It'll still take color when I put color over it, but those colors will be not as dark as around the surrounding colors. So it tends to make your highlights stand out a little bit better. Just moderate pressure, lighter pressure in the areas where it's just barely a lighter shade of white on the paper already. And there's probably 100 ways to do this. This is just my method. But you just have to figure out what works best for you, and if you get the results that you hope for, then just remember what you did and keep on doing it. So that gives us basics of where the colors are going to be a little lighter. I'm not worried about the fur yet. That'll be another process. So then I'll start in with my lighter blues up against the white. And into the shadows. I'm not applying much pressure right now because again we're going to layer, and as I layer those colors I will apply more pressure later, pushing them together, merging those colors. I'm not really fussing with precision right now, as you can see. I'm just trying to get a little color down. Now that's the blue in here. So I'm thinking of having this blue and then this over, not sure what that is, but that over skirt. I'm thinking maybe pink. Getting real girly here on my colors, I think. Pink and blue, and this bottom one, give that some thought. Sounds like I'm pressing really hard, but I'm not. Paper's just rough, which is nice because it takes the color. I'll be thinking about that top and bottom, but in the meantime I'll just continue on with the blue area. And this is the Caribbean blue. That's 1103 for Prisma. Again, I'm not being real precise here. Just trying to get some colors down. I don't make you dizzy flipping my paper back and forth. It's a little easier taking the page out of the book, although I admit this is the first time I've ever done that. There was actually a duplicate of this earlier on in the book, in the first few pages. But I managed to spill water on it and then tried to wipe the water off and tore a hole in the page. So I had to revert to the back page. And that's always, to me, always really hard to color those back pages because the book doesn't want to lay right. Sometimes I just put another coloring book up underneath of that side and that works. But I thought for a demonstration, I would be shuffling so many things around that it would just annoy you. So now I'm going to bring in the Cerulean blue, that's Prisma 103, and just in the deeper areas where the shadows would be, add a little bit of color in there. Fabric to me is always labor intensive, more so than skin tones. I find those fairly easy and quick to do, as you can see. Hair is a bit of a struggle for me, but it's not quite so labor intensive as getting the fabric just right. So I'm switching back again to the powder blue, and it's just like on the flesh tones, we have to just keep going back and forth between the colors to build them. And then now I start going over the white a little bit with the lighter blue. As the white was just holding that area for highlights. Just to make sure that I kept it lighter than the rest of the area. Lightly going over the white areas as I go. Trying to go with the grain of the fabric so that I don't get any crosswise lines, because it just won't look right. So try to go with the flow of the fabric. And if you really can't tell what the flow of the fabric is, these areas down here, go in small circles. Just a small circular motion, and that way it won't leave any telltale signs as to the direction you were going. It won't stand out. I think I'm going to lighten that up a little bit. It's just bothering me. Maybe even a little white. Sometimes white will help tone down an area that might be just a little too dark. That's better. That was just irritating me. So I want to fix it now so I don't keep thinking about it. to layering. Just switching back and forth between the powder blue and the Caribbean blue, or Caribbean Sea. You see the colors are starting to blend together. It is quite a process. Pressing a little bit harder now. I've got a few layers on. Not terribly hard though, because I still need to do more layers and I don't want to burnish the paper. Although I have to say Prismas are pretty forgiving. They still tend to layer even after the paper gets burnished. You just have to be very careful blending after you do that, because you can just take the color right back off. Back to the darker blue. Try to bring some more color into the folds. Try to follow what looks like would be the deepest or sharpest shadows. Using just short strokes to try to follow the folds in the cloth rather than to just apply a lot of pressure. I just want to lay a little bit of color over that. I'll blend it in with the lighter color. It's starting to come together. Just takes a while. For me, I find it's best not to rush the process, just do what needs to be done to get the desired result. So if you stop too soon and you're unhappy with your page, then chances are you just needed to go a little bit more. So you have to kind of weigh the desire to hurry up and be done with the desire to have a particular look. And of course, that's each individual's choice, you know, whether they want to be done quickly or to have a particular look that they're going for, and just being patient and just have to stick with the process until you get what you want. There are days when I just want to hurry up and get something done. I don't know why. I'm just impatient some days. And I think it shows on my work when I do that. go back to the Caribbean blue. I was using the Cerulean blue. Now, I haven't tracked how many layers I have now because I just go over and over and over, and it's really hard to keep track of exactly how many layers I've put down. When it looks right, which it does not look right yet, I will probably use the blending pencil to, or not pencil, sorry, blending marker. Never use a blending pencil on grayscale images. It drags the color off the page and into your pencil color that you've laid down and muddies it. This is white again. Sometimes white will blend nicely. Now I am pressing pretty hard on this white. Do be careful because prismas break fairly easily. I have some colors of prismas that I've just about given up on. I've replaced them over and over again and they just break. So it must be in their formula. Some colors are just way softer. Can't tell you how many chocolate browns I've been through. I think it's starting to get there now. It's taking on more of a satiny look. It's funny, sometimes the way I do this, it comes out looking like satin, and other times it comes out looking like velvet. So whichever it comes out is fine, just as long as it comes out looking like cloth. think blended pretty well at this point. The white is pushing those other colors together. I will continue to add. You can see there's still little white dots. And some people don't care about the little white dots. They drive me crazy. And I will get to those in a few. But in the meantime, just found purple pencil where it doesn't belong. So I need to incorporate a little bit darker color here into the shadows. This is a Caran d'Ache Pablo Ultramarine Blue. It's a harder pencil, but it's good for getting a sharp point, getting sharp lines. And I'll press hard where I start, and then I'll let pressure up as I move outward. And blend in softly. outlining where this trim is going to be. I find that if you put a nice sharp line between two different colors in grayscale, it makes your entire picture look crisper, sharper, more in focus. I think these Pablos, what they do is actually scrape off some of the paint layer or pencil layers that are already there. And so you'll see me having to constantly wipe the little crumbs or particles away. So that looks pretty good. We'll need some blending. And what I have to blend with is the Prismacolor Premier colorless blender. It's like a marker, only there's just no color to it. So I'll just wipe this over the area. Actually, if you have any small areas, the other end is very, you can see that, very narrow, pointy end. But for this large area, I just thought the broad end would be better. It works on Prismas. It works fairly well on Pablos. Works on Spirfarben. Works pretty good on those. Later, when I have completed the rest of the page, I'll go through with a black pencil, like a Prisma very thin, something along those lines, and a black, and sharpen up lines. Meantime, what I do when I'm done with my marker as I take some of the blue off, because the next time I might be using a different shade of blue. And I don't want to contaminate my next thing I color. I generally keep one of these for different color groups. So I have one I use for blue purple, one for yellows, one for oranges and reds, one's for green, and one for brown, and one for gray and black. They're $4 or $5 a piece, so not cheap, but I use them sparingly, really. But there we go. So that's how we color fabric and skin. And I will call this part 1, and we'll finish it up on another day. Thanks for watching.